Welcome to V2V podcast, Vision to Value. Hi, I'm Daiji Kimura. I'm the head of growth at Invedo, a custom software agency, and the founder of daijikimura.com, where we help to execute innovative projects that really deliver, whether that's boosting ROI, increasing sales, or driving meaningful change. If you're managing digital projects or leading a tech business, you're in the right place. I know how overwhelming it can be to stay on top of trends, manage constant change, and cut through the noise. That's why this podcast is all about keeping complex topics simple, hands-on, and grounded. As a former athlete, I understand that achieving goals takes practice, focus, and the right guidance. Think of this podcast as your training ground for success in innovation. And now, let's dive in. Hi there. Today's topic is innovation is not an idea. It's a process. I want to share my observation for enterprise CIOs or anybody who navigates digital transformation. Innovation isn't a consequence of one of inspiration. It lies in your processes and your ability to model them. You know what I've seen a lot lately? A CIO comes up with this brilliant idea, something exciting, future forward, visionary, and he or she is fired up. And the CIO calls in the tech team, maybe a few consultants, and says, "We need to build this." And everybody thinks they're good to go. But in fact, they're not. Because here's the thing. The idea sounds great at a high level, but once we start digging in, it's vague. Like really vague on both sides. The business side isn't quite sure what success looks like. The tech side doesn't know what to build. Everybody is stuck in between. I call it the impossibility phase. Time flies. The initial excitement fades away, and the project, it never really starts. No diagrams, no models, no shared understanding, just good intentions. Sounds familiar? I'll explain why it happens. We often idolize the eureka moment, that sudden epiphany where a genius knows the answer. But in reality, most breakthroughs come from rolling up our sleeves and systematically analyzing our business. Thomas Edison once said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." Edison's inventions, like the light bulb or the phonograph, etc., were not born overnight. They instead emerged through thousands of careful experiments, refining the processes little by little. In much the same way, true innovation in software and process optimization is usually a product of structured analysis, not spontaneous action. In this episode, I'll bust the myth of the lone innovator struck by a sudden inspiration. Instead, I'll show how the process of creating diagrams, models, and mapping techniques reveals opportunities hiding in plain sight. So let's jump in. Let's talk about the myth of single idea versus the reality of structured innovation. My hypothesis is as follows. Innovation is rarely a random epiphany. It's the result of structured thinking and analysis. There's a popular narrative that breakthroughs happen when a visionary suddenly sees the light, the proverbial flash of genius. But research and experience tell a different story. In fact, people tend to hold two approaches to the creative process. One is the insight model, so innovation as a sudden spark, and the other is production model, so innovation as a systematic process. If you start innovating and executing the project, just based on your idea, you may end up optimizing the process that should never have existed in the first place. So you don't want this. Consider how large organizations approach innovation. They don't sit around and just brainstorm. They build processes for it. Structured innovation involves finding solutions in a methodical way through process and procedure instead of hoping for an eureka moment. They know, like Edison did, that systematic hard work and experimentation pave the road to invention. So how do we prepare for innovation systematically? We do it by using frameworks and methodologies that guide our analysis of business processes, customer needs, and technical challenges. So let's talk about the frameworks and methodologies for structured innovation. These aren't just academic exercises. They're battle-tested approaches that have led to real competitive advantages. As we go through them, notice a common theme. Each provides structure to the innovation process, ensuring that great ideas emerge from a repeatable system rather than one of luck. I prepared a few well-known methodologies that organizations use to systematically drive innovation. The first one is TRIZ, Theory of Inventive Problem Solving. It's born from the analysis of millions of patterns, and TRIZ is a framework that says someone, somewhere, has already solved a problem similar to ours. So instead of brainstorming blindly, TRIZ guides you to universal principles and patterns that have led to breakthroughs before. It provides a toolkit of strategies like the 40 inventive principles and contradiction matrix to resolve trade-offs in clever ways. For example, in aviation, early aircraft designers used TRIZ to resolve the conflict between speed and safety by inventing retractable landing gear. In simple words, wheels that tuck away to reduce drag without sacrificing the ability to land. These innovations weren't lucky guesses. They were systematic solutions uncovered by analyzing the problem's structure. It's no wonder the world's biggest companies have integrated TRIZ into their innovation process to cut development time and find inventive designs. The next one is design thinking. It is far away from being an unstructured creative exercise. Design thinking is a highly structured approach to innovation. It typically follows steps like empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test in an iterative loop. This framework forces teams to understand the problem deeply from the user or customer perspective before jumping to solutions. By supplying a structure to the innovation process, design thinking helps diverse teams to collaborate and agree on what really matters at each stage. It's been described as part science, part art. We use empathy and observation, which is the art part, within a disciplined framework, which can be considered as a science. Many CIOs know that when their teams hit a wall with a broken process, running a design thinking workshop can spark creative fixes. As Harvard Business Review notes, the power of design thinking is in addressing the behaviors and biases that impede innovation, and it gets everyone on the same page and focused on the right outcome. For instance, you can use design thinking to streamline your workflow. Don't start by shoehorning a given tech or solution to the problem. Instead, map out your current process and ask what it should look like if it were more efficient. It's about refining the process and really finding the areas where it can be optimized and automated. The third one is Lean Six Sigma. So Lean Six Sigma combines two powerful methodologies: Lean, which is known for handling wastes, and Six Sigma, known for process improvement. Together, they form a structured, systematic approach to improving processes. Lean Six Sigma follow a clear roadmap called DMAIC: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Step by step, teams define the problem, measure the current performance, analyze root causes, implement improvements, and standardize the solution. It's rigorous and fact-based. While some argue Six Sigma's focus on incremental improvement can stifle wild innovation, the truth is it often sparks innovation of a pragmatic kind. By continuously removing inefficiencies, you free up resources and create space for new ideas. In fact, Lean Six Sigma is excellent for incremental innovation, the kind that keeps you competitive quarter after quarter. Remember, continuous improvement at scale is innovation. It's just innovation by 1,000 small cuts instead of one big bang. As evidence, consider that companies that failed to continuously improve often fell behind. A study noted that over 88% of the Fortune 500 firms from 50 years ago have disappeared largely because they couldn't keep innovating and improving sustainably. Lean Six Sigma creates a culture and structure to avoid that fate. And the fourth one is theory of constraints, commonly known as TOC. And this methodology focuses on one undeniable fact. In any complex process, there's usually one bottleneck that influences the overall output. So the TOC gives us a focused 5-step process to systematically improve the performance. Identify the constraint, then you have exploit the constraint, so make it as efficient as possible with the existing means, subordinate everything else to the constraint, elevate the constraint, which means basically add capacity or new solutions, and then repeat it for the next constraint. So it goes in a cycle. By continually attacking the current weakest link, you improve the whole chain. This approach often leads to innovative solutions because it forces you to deeply analyze your process and question assumptions about where the real problems are. Companies innovate not by adding more resources blindly, but by rethinking how the work flows. By the way, rethinking your workflow is something I truly recommend every company to do with the rise of new technology such as AI. Can you notice one common denominator in all these methodologies? They all force to a structured look at the problem. So for example, TRIZ makes you diagram contradictions and search known patterns. Design thinking makes you map user journeys and iterate prototypes. Lean Six Sigma makes you chart out processes, measure them, and use statistical analysis. And the TOC makes you draw out the entire system to find the bottleneck points. So in every case, the diagram model of the process is what unlocks the insights. So now let's talk about diagrams and mapping tools that reveal opportunities. When I say it's what you see in the diagram, you might think, what kind of diagrams am I talking about? In practice, innovation managers use a variety of visual mapping tools to lay out the processes and systems. The first one is value stream mapping, VSM. So VSM is a lean method for visualizing the end-to-end flow of materials and information required to deliver a product or service. Think of it as a bird's eye view of your process from start to finish. It charts every step, queue, handoff, and decision point. By drawing a value stream map, teams can identify which steps add value and which are pure waste. In healthcare, for instance, Virginia Mason Medical Center used VSM to map the patient care journey and discovered numerous delays and non-value activities. By redesigning the flow, they significantly reduced patient wait times and errors, improving both efficiency and care quality. These results weren't luck. They came from literally drawing out the process, scrutinizing it, and asking, what can we do better at each step? So, for any CIO looking to optimize an enterprise value chain, be it order fulfillment, software delivery, or customer support resolution, a value stream map is an essential starting point to spark innovation. The next one is SIPOC. SIPOC stands for Suppliers, Inputs, Process, Outputs, and Customers. It's a high-level process mapping tool often used in Six Sigma's defined phase to outline the overall process context in a one simple diagram. A SIPOC chart forces you to clarify who supplies what inputs to your processes, what major steps make up the process, what outputs are produced, and who the end customers are. This clarity can be surprisingly enlightening. For instance, a large health insurance company used SIPOC when they set out to reduce the cycle time of processing claims. By listing out suppliers and inputs, they realized there were far too many hands-offs, like multiple departments supplying data into the claims process, which introduced delays and errors. The SIPOC diagrams also showed that some outputs from early steps didn't match what later steps or customers really needed. Classic misalignment. So by rationalizing the inputs, reducing duplicate data entry, and adjusting the process steps to better fit customer requirements, meaning outputs, they innovated a new streamlined claims process that was much faster. SIPOC is great for giving teams that big picture in one page. It often surfaces questions like, do we really need this output from two separate sources? Or is this output actually used by our customer? Question that can lead to simplifying a process or even redesigning it entirely. For a CIO, SIPOC is a quick way to communicate complex processes across stakeholders and ensure everyone sees the same model, a first step to more detailed mapping and improvement. The third one is BPMN, Business Process Model and Notation. So BPMN is a standardized visual modeling language for drawing detailed process workflows. You've likely seen BPMN diagrams, flowcharts with the standardized symbols for events, activities, gateways, decision points, etc. The value of BPMN lies in its precision and common language. It allows business analysts, developers, stakeholders to share a clear picture of how a process works or should work. So by modeling a process in BPMN, you can perform what-if analysis or spot complexity that isn't obvious in a narrative description. Many robotic process automation, like RPA or workflow automation initiatives, begin by diagramming the current manual process in BPMN and identifying steps that a bot or software could do instead of a human. Number 4 is event storming. In the world of software innovation and domain-driven design, event storming has emerged as a powerful workshops technique to understand complex business domains and processes. It's essentially a facilitated mapping session where everyone collaboratively models a process as a sequence of domain events, usually using sticky notes on a wall. Unlike a strict BPMN diagram, event storming is free-form and encourages storytelling. So participants from business and IT blurt out events that occur, like order placed, payment received, inventory updated, etc., and place them in sequence. They can also add the other elements like commands, external systems, or policies. The outcome is the timeline of how things happen in the domain. So why is this innovative? Because it breaks down silos. It gets people who normally only see their piece of the process to use the whole picture. Many teams use those insights to prioritize their digital transformation initiatives. Each of these diagrams, whether high level like SIPOC or granular like BPMN, acts as a mirror held up to your organization. Suddenly, everyone can see the same thing, and that shared understanding often leads to the question, why are we doing it this way? Which is the spark that ignites innovation. Cognitive science of insights, how we see or can't see patterns. Innovation might not be magic, but there is some brain science behind those aha moments. When we lay out a diagram or dataset in front of a team, whether they spot an opportunity can depend on how their brains are trained to recognize patterns and how open they are to noticing the unexpected. I'm going to break down a few cognitive concepts relevant to finding innovation in diagrams. Pattern recognition and expertise. The human brain is a pattern-finding machine. Experts, in particular, excel at quickly recognizing meaningful patterns in information that beginners might overlook. An experienced CIO might glance at a complex org chart or process diagram and instantly sense where something is off, thanks to years of seeing similar patterns. Cognitive science tells us that experts don't just have more knowledge, they have better organized knowledge in mental models which affect what they notice and they interpret what they see. For instance, a veteran manufacturing manager might look at the production line value stream map and immediately flag, this inventory buildup here is suspicious. It likely indicates a bottleneck downstream, whereas a junior analyst might not connect those dots. Experts effectively chunk information and see the storyline in the visual data. This ability to see the forest and the trees is why certain individuals become the go-to problem whisperers in an organization. They're not magically smarter. They've simply internalized lots of patterns. The good news is teams can nurture this skill through deliberate practice. For example, reviewing past project diagrams to see what successes or failures they foreshadowed, training themselves on what patterns to look for the next time. The next one is very interesting. It's called inattentional blindness, or simply missing the gorilla. On the flip side of expertise is a fascinating vulnerability. We sometimes do not see something plainly in front of us because we're not looking for it. This is the phenomenon of inattentional blindness. There's a famous study that illustrates it perfectly. Participants watch a video of people passing basketballs and are told to count the passes. In the middle of the video, a person in a gorilla suit comes through, beats his chest, and then walks off. Afterwards, many viewers are shocked to realize they never saw a gorilla at all. In fact, about 50% miss it because their attention was narrowly focused elsewhere. Inattentional blindness happens when teams are so focused on one metric or one part of this process that they literally fail to see a huge opportunity or risk in front of them. For example, a team might be so focused on optimizing server response time in a system diagram that they overlook the fact that the entire process path is unnecessary, maybe a legacy step that could be eliminated. The gorilla could be an outdated policy box on a BPMN chart that everyone thinks is someone else's responsibility, so no one questions it. Overcoming this requires consciously widening our field of view. This is where techniques like peer reviews of diagrams or bringing in outsiders can help. Fresh eyes may spot the gorilla in the flow that insiders tuned out. The last cognitive bias is mental models and assumptions. So each of us carries a mental model, simplified internal representations of how we think things work. These models guide what we expect to see. They're useful, but they can also blind us to alternative interpretations. When analyzing a diagram, people with different mental models might see different stories. The dev sees a software integration problem, the ops manager sees throughput problem, and the service lead sees a customer friction point. To leverage this, when you have a diagram or model that outlines your business, try to invite someone from a different department to review it. Cultivate a practice of cross-functional diagram reviews can breed insights. Understanding these cognitive factors reminds us that innovation is as much about people as it is about processes. Two teams can use the same tool and get different results based on how they think. Great innovation leaders, therefore, coach their teams to adopt the right mindset when examining diagrams. Like, be curious, question assumptions, invite diverse perspectives, and do not get tunnel vision. They also create an environment where noticing a problem isn't negative. It's celebrated as the first step to a solution. Some people are too shy to speak up. So for example, in your organization, if someone sees a quote-unquote gorilla and an odd inefficiency in a process map and everyone else overlooked it, you actually want them who spot it to speak up. That's a cultural aspect of innovation. So rewarding those who point out the inconvenient observation, because that's often where the gold is. I've guided you through a lot of ideas, from TRIZ matrices to cognitive biases. Through all of this, I would like to just convey a simple message to enterprise leaders. Innovation is not an unforeseeable miracle. It emerges from how you look at your business. So the diagrams, maps, models, they're all great. But remember, they're just means to an end. Your job as a manager navigating innovation is to train your eyes and your team's eyes to see what's in those diagrams and what might be missing from them. Remember, attention is all you need. Thank you so much for listening. Now go forth and start modeling your business processes, and I hope you discover the next great idea hidden in plain sight of your wall. If you feel you need someone hands-on to help you execute the process of optimization or innovation, just reach out to me on daijikimura.com. It's daijikimura.com, or simply find me on LinkedIn. That's all for today. Until the next time, good luck.